This is how to make Ed and Faye's homemade tomato soup. Got to give my wife all the credit for this because she's the one that taught me how to do it. And we did it. We was married 42 years, and she got cancer and passed away. But all the years, with the exception of maybe 4, together we made this soup. The first 2, because we didn't have kids during the first 2. And the other 2, the first one I was deployed by the Marine Corps to Vietnam, and the second one I was deployed by Alabama Army National Guard in 2003. And I doubt that she made any during those years because she liked for me to do the outside stuff, the gardening, and she liked the inside stuff, so I'd say that she didn't do it. But anyway, our kids love this soup, and so we made it, and I still make it because my baby is 38 years old, but she'll still, all of them in fact, will still come by and take a few jars with them. So Dad continues to make the soup that my darling wife taught me how to make. So the first thing we've got to do is prepare the tomatoes. To do that, you put on a pot of water and get it to a rolling boil. And by the way, anytime that you put the top on something, it gets hot quicker. So once you get it to a boil, of course you would add your tomatoes. But while it's getting hot, you need to set up everything else. You need 1 bowl in the sink with cold water in it. You need something where you can put your discards, your peels from your tomatoes, this, that, and the other. And you need 1 bowl where that you can capture your juice and your pulp from your tomatoes. And so you need to go ahead and get all that set up while the water is starting to boil. After the water has started to boil, then you put your tomatoes in it. Now this will take it down below a boil, so it'd probably be good to put the top back on it and get it back to a boil again. Once it gets to a boil with the tomatoes in it, then you need to take them out one by one and put them in your cold water in the sink. Now what I'm using here is a special tool that's made to pick hot jars up out of boiling water, but I found that it does just as good on tomatoes. So I just take it and pick the tomatoes up, take it over and drop it in the cold water into the sink. And if you would like, you can actually add ice cubes to the cold water in the sink. And the whole purpose of this is so that you can easily remove the skin from the tomato, because you want to get as much of the juice and the pulp as you possibly can. Once you have emptied your boiling water and you have a bowl full in the sink, then add another pot full of tomatoes to your boiling water for the second go round. Then you can start processing the tomatoes that you've got in the sink. So the purpose for scalding the tomatoes is so the skin won't turn loose. Now when you pick the tomato up out of the cold water, you want to hold it over the bowl where the juice and stuff that drips will go into the bowl, because you want to save as much of the juice and pulp as you possibly can. But hold it over the bowl and take your hand and pull the skin off of it and put it in your discard bowl. Now take your knife and cut the tomato up in small pieces. You want to keep all the juice and the pulp from the tomato. The only thing that you want to discard is the outer skin and the core. That'd be the final thing that you're holding on to. And of course any bad parts that you have. Once in a while it'll have a bad place in it, and you want to cut that out as well. Now the riper your tomato is, the smaller core that you will actually have once you process the juice and the pulp from the tomato. The greener the tomato is, the more core that you'll have, because that center core part, if it's got any green in it, you don't want to put that in there. So the greener it is, the more core you'll have. The riper it is, the less core that you will have. Now you must process the tomato when they're ripe. And depending on how large a garden you have, or whatever, you may not be able to have enough ripe tomatoes to make a big bowl of soup. And you might be forced, if you want to process them right then, and making 2 or 3 jars instead of 7, 14, whatever. And I'm fixing to show you how you can do that and still make a big pot out of it. So once you got through processing all of the ripe tomatoes you have now, here's what you do. I have 4 or 5 see-through gallon jugs that I bought at Walmart. And when I get through processing, I'll take a cup and I'll dip whatever I process into one of those gallon jugs. And pour the juice, everything. I won't save everything I possibly can. Then I'll put the top on it. Now, if you want to process a good bit of soup, a gallon is preferable, even 2 or 3. But at least a gallon, that would actually be the minimum. So if you don't get a gallon of processed tomatoes this way, then you need to just go ahead and put that into the refrigerator. Now it will keep quite a long time in the refrigerator. And when you process your next batch, you can just add to that. But I have kept it in the refrigerator up to 2 weeks before I actually went ahead and made a batch of soup out of it. So like I say, it will keep in the refrigerator for quite a long time, up to 2 weeks. And if you have chickens like I do, then they will love you forever if you give them your leftover tomato parts, which I do. I just go out there and throw it out in the yard, and they go after it big time. Now, when you get ready to make your soup, you're going to need 2 big pots. Take your first pot, pour your tomatoes and tomato juice and all in it. Then you want to add whatever vegetables. Now, I add corn, green beans, butter beans, sweet peas, onions, potatoes if I have them. Now, a lot of people like okra and peppers in it as well. I never add those 2 because sometimes people don't like them and sometimes they do. So you can always add that later. And onions, I add that if I have it. Now, I do have a friend that can't eat onions, so once in a while I'll process some soup that doesn't have onions in it and put back a jar or 2 for him. But, you know, just put whatever vegetables you want to in it and go ahead and fire the heat up and put your top on it and let that start warming up while you're processing your jars. Of course, you know you're going to have to be doing more than one thing at a time. It would help if you had help, and once in a while my daughter does help me out. But now then, what we need to do is to take the jars, although they're new, or it doesn't matter, they could be used, whatever. We want to scrub them good, so wash them with soap and water real good, and then put them in the drainer and let them be draining. And although we know that we washed them good, that's still not good enough. We're preparing food for our family. So that's what the second pot is for. So what we're going to do with that is going to go ahead and put water in it. In fact, I usually do that first and let that come into a boil. And when my soup gets ready, then I take my tube, pick up a jar that have already pre-washed, and I dip in there and scald that jar. You cannot be too safe. Now, things that we are going to need, of course, is fruit jars, and behind the fruit jar you can see it's a little tool that you use to pick a jar up out of hot water, and also what I use to scald them with. Then I got a little pair of scissors-like pickups, and that's to pick up hot lids that's going to be in boiling water as well. Then I got a funnel, a stirring spoon, and then I've got a dipper. They call that a ladle, I believe, Laddle. But you can get them that you can actually dip 1 cup at a time, 1 full cup. That's actually a little bit much, I think. I think this one here is like a half or 3/4 of a cup, but it's fine. It gets a good bit as you dip. Now, something else that we're going to need is packing and canning salt. That's what's in the green bag. We will need that to assist the lid in sealing. We'll also need pure lemon juice. That's what's in the bottle. Now the purpose for it is to keep the coloration right. If you don't use lemon juice, as the soup sets in your closet, the tomatoes will turn to an off red color and make you think they're going bad. If you put lemon juice in there with it, then it stays just like it does when you first canned it. Now I also used little plastic bowls, put my lids in one with scalding hot water, put my rings in another so I don't have to knock them in the floor and chase them all over the kitchen. Now, as I said before, we're going to need 2 pots. So now then, our soup, we've got it at a boil, so it's ready to go in the jar. And our pot on the left is also at a boil, and so we're ready to sanitize our jars. So we take the Special 2, we pick up a jar, stick it in the hot boiling water, sanitize it, pour the water out, and then set it on the counter. I usually do, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 at a time, whatever, because I'm fixing to put soup in them right quick. But you don't want to sanitize it and then let it set for 30 or 40 minutes or whatever. You want to do that as soon as you can to where that you actually put the soup in there. Now, I did find something at Walmart that comes in mighty handy. I used to use dish towels and put around the hot jar because the jar is hot from just coming out of scalding water when you start to put the scalding hot soup in there. And Walmart has this little deal you can see right here that you just put around your jar, and you put a thumb in one and 2 fingers in the other one, and you can hold on to the jar. So you stick your funnel in there, and you take your ladle and start dipping the soup into her. Now, you want your soup to come up to about the end of the funnel, or 1 inch from the top of the jar. And once you get it to that point, then you need to set it aside. Now, you don't want your funnel to become contaminated, so you don't want to take it out and lay it down. If you do not have another jar prepared, then leave the funnel in that jar. Then go ahead and take you another jar, stick it in the boiling hot water, and sanitize it. And then at that time, take the funnel out of the jar that you just processed and stick it into your new jar and continue on. Now, you want to take a teaspoon, and you want to put 1 teaspoon of packing and canning salt into each jar. You don't have to do it right after you do it. You can line them up and have 8 or so waiting. It doesn't matter. But you want to put 1 tablespoon. I'm sorry, teaspoon, not tablespoon. The small one. Now after that, you want to take a different spoon, and you want to get your lemon juice and put 1 teaspoon of lemon juice in each jar as well. After you get done with that, then you want to take a paper towel or a damp cloth, and you want to wipe the very top of the jar off. Now, it may look clean to you, doesn't make any difference. Wipe it off anyway. 1 grain of salt will prevent that rubber seal on the lid from sealing. So make sure that you wipe every single one of them before you put the lid on it. Now use a small pot and boil water in it and have it ready. When I get ready to start putting the lids on it, then I'll pour that scalding water into the plastic bowl with the lids in it. Then you take your little scissors and pick up one lid and put it on the top of your jar. Then take your ring and screw it onto your jar. Now you don't have to kill it. All you want to do is snug it good. The heat is actually going to seal it. The ring is just to hold the seal in place so that it cannot back off while the soup inside the jar is boiling inside the pot once we do that. So all you got to do is just snug it down. You don't need to kill it. If you do, you're going to have a lot of trouble opening jars when you get done. Now your boiling pot comes with a rack that you can set your jars in. You can purchase that at Walmart as well. And you can either set it on your counter like you see it here, or you can put it in your pot first. Now I prefer to actually hang mine on the pot. So it's got the little thing made so that it can just hang over the top, and then set my jars in there with it hanging above the water. Now it will hold 7 jars, and then you take your after you get your 7 jars on there, you just take it and pick it up and set it down into the water. Now you can use a pressure cooker to do this with also if you'd like, but I've been doing it this way for nearly 50 years and it works great. Never had any problem whatsoever. Now once you get it down into the water, make sure that the water covers the top of the jars. Now once you ensure that the water is covering the top of the jars, if it's not, then add water to it. Then put your lid on it so that it can start to boil. And of course, if you had to add water to it, then it's going to take it a little bit longer before it actually starts to boil. Now once it comes to a rolling boil, as you see here, then you want to put your top back on it, and you want to time it for 45 minutes. Now after it boils 45 minutes, take them out of the pot, put them on the counter on a dish towel. Now I always turn mine upside down, and the reason I do that puts the maximum amount of heat on the lid for the longest possible period of time to ensure that they will seal. That's the reason I do it. Now once they've cooled off, flip them over and check to make sure that they have sealed. In fact, sometimes you can actually hear them seal. You'll be walking through the house and hear pow, and you know it's sealed. But anyway, make sure it's sealed. And then I use a Sharpie to put the date that I actually canned them on top. Now if this was something I could misjudge by looking, I would actually write tomato soup on it or whatever. But you're not going to mistake soup. So all I do here is I just put the date itself on there. Now on this particular run, I had 2 batches, 14 jars, 7 on each run. And so this was a pretty good one. So I have my first 14 jars of soup for 2015 ready to go. Now when you open the jar of soup to serve, I always brown a pound of ground beef and get that ready first. And I open the jar of soup and I pour it into a pot to heat up. Then I fill the jar with water, and I also pour that into the same pot, because remember, this is a concentrate, so you need to add a little bit of water to it. Also at this time, if you want to add any vegetables, then you can do that. Like the okra we talked about, potatoes, onions, peppers, whatever. You add whatever you want at that time. Okay, bring it to a boil, add the ground beef to it, and then you turn your heat down some and you cook it down as needed, and then serve it.